Hello and welcome to an introduction to Eureka Math Squared, exponentially greater. My objective is to spend about the next 20 minutes with you, introducing the curriculum to you. And as I do that, allow me to introduce myself. Alongside my colleague Morgan Sibelik, I serve and support the needs of districts and schools with their review and implementation of high quality instructional materials. As we talk about Eureka Math Squared, it's important to talk about where it all came from. You may be familiar with Eureka Math. Eureka Math began its life as Engage New York, the math curriculum for the state of New York. Back in about 2013, it went live. The rest of the nation was interested in it. The rest of the nation loved it. And so it didn't make sense to call a national curriculum Engage New York. Changed the name to Eureka Math. Eureka Math became the gold standard on ed reports for alignments and rigor. And to this day, it is the most widely used curriculum in the history of math education. That leads us to Eureka Math Squared. So starting in 2013, a ton of districts and schools used Eureka Math, loved it. At the same time, there was and is room for improvement. Over the last number of years, with research, with feedback from schools and districts, we've identified that we need to, in Eureka Math Squared and creating a new curriculum, maintain those aspects of Eureka Math that we all know and love, the focus, coherence, and rigor, illustrated in this net in green, while improving exponentially the teachability, engagement, and accessibility of the new curriculum. Eureka Math sets out to incorporate open-ended lessons, digital interactives, new routines to support student engagement and discourse, and increased readability. What I'll do is illustrate that for you over the next few minutes. And all of these exponentially greater improvements are built on a foundation of equity. The objective is to advance equity through exponentially greater engagement, accessibility, and teachability, supporting you, the teacher, as you support and nurture the greatness in each of your children. What does this look like? The materials that you'll use with Eureka Math Squared. Firstly, concrete manipulatives. Everything within Eureka Math Squared is built on a conceptual understanding and progression of concrete, pictorial, and symbolic. Everything begins with the concrete and then progresses to enabling students to demonstrate their understanding with pictorial representations, and then finally moving over to that abstract symbolic understanding, the algorithms, the procedures. And so it's all founded first on manipulatives. At the same time, there are student workbooks. There's a teacher workbook, it's called Teach, student workbooks, as well as a digital platform. And this digital platform is designed to seamlessly and cohesively integrate with these print resources. We'll talk some more about that over the next few minutes. Here we are, the digital platform, the Teach book, teacher edition called Teach, and the digital platform with that seamless integration. Now, you'll notice something really cool. The front cover of each Teach book, within each module, there is an example of fine arts. Each level, each grade, includes opportunities for students to dive into fine arts related to the mathematical content that they're studying. Because multimodal learning is the best and most effective learning, and because fine art is a beautiful scaffold into discussion, discourse, and it gives an opportunity for all students to participate in discussions. As we support students, we need to first support teachers. Each module for teachers in the Teach book begins with a before this module. And this before this module gives an overview, highlights of that content that laid a necessary foundation, bridging into this current module. At the end of the module, there's an after this module so that teachers can understand the coherence links. This is all embedded in the module overview. And the module overview is designed to upskill teachers. We're supporting the greatness in students, but teachers need to be supported in their greatness first. Within the module overview, there are a number of sections to support teachers. There's that before and after this module section. There's also a section called Why. And it's a deep dive into asking the questions that teachers will ask as they understand the coherence links and seek to understand the curriculum creator's decision-making process in constructing the curriculum in this particular fashion. So what questions would teachers ask? And here are the answers from the curriculum writers themselves, so that teachers can understand the decision-making process. Additionally, you will find as teachers achievement descriptors and proficiency indicators. These are our beautiful innovations built on the reality that the state standards are helpful, but they're not specific enough. Instead of using action-oriented verbs consistently, there's a lot of students will understand this, students will understand that, and students do need to understand, but teachers need to understand what students understand. And so achievement descriptors are action-oriented descriptions that focus on what students should know relative to each of the standards and the state standards, and relative to each of the module content and lesson content that's being tackled. Achievement descriptors are beautiful. The next step in supporting teachers is what we call proficiency indicators. They're rubrics that indicate proficiency. They're rubrics that show what a student knowing, demonstrating proficiency with this particular standard, actually looks like. So it takes a ton of work off of teachers' shoulders by illustrating what success looks like: proficiency, partial proficiency, high proficiency. It tells teachers what it looks like, and it enables teachers to assess accurately and specifically. Within the Teach book, the teacher edition, you'll see that each lesson ends with an exit ticket, a formative assessment opportunity, and each lesson therefore begins with that particular exit ticket. Now, students take the exit ticket at the end of the lesson. The exit ticket is included at the start of the lesson so that teachers can begin with the end in mind and understand what this lesson's mathematical journey will take their students on. So where are we beginning? Where do we want to support students in getting to at the end of the lesson? At the same time, each lesson includes key questions, because students need to be able to talk about math to understand math. These are the questions that will drive learning forward on this lesson. Each lesson has key questions, and beautifully, these key questions will then be answered by students themselves at the end of the lesson. We've got the exit ticket at the end of the lesson. Additionally, at the end of the lesson, there's a debrief, and that's an opportunity for students to discuss answers to those very questions that were asked of them at the beginning of the lesson and that drove learning forward. Here are those achievement descriptors. You'll see in blue the achievement descriptor itself, and then underneath that in smaller font the state standards. So directly linked the two together. Here we are still inside the Teach book as we highlight how Eureka Math was beautiful in its focus, coherence, and rigor. We in Eureka Math Squared set out to maintain that rigor and set out to make sure that students do develop a conceptual understanding, but at the same time to do that in an exponentially more accessible, teachable, and readable fashion. And part of accessibility is a consistent lesson structure. So across each of the lessons, each lesson will begin with fluency, helping students to understand the way numbers talk to each other, telling a story. And then each lesson includes a launch, a learn, and a land. The learn portion of the lesson series of instructional segments is the heart of the lesson. At the same time, at the beginning of each lesson, teachers will see a quick summary: materials for teachers, materials for students, preparation for teachers, making sure that the teachers are supported. In the name of supporting students and equipping students with a real understanding and application of rigor, we've included open-ended lessons and open middle tasks. And what that means is that rigor is not taking grade 5 content and dropping it down to grade 3. Rigor is developing a deep and meaningful conceptual understanding. Rigor means understanding the why behind math. And that's what Eureka Math Square does. It helps students to understand the why behind math, often for the first time ever. It's not about skipping straight to an algorithm and just following and memorizing a procedure. It's actually understanding the math behind that algorithm and the math behind that procedure first, before even getting to that procedure. For me, that was a big eureka moment when I understood that, wow, we can actually draw, we can pictorially represent multiplication. We can draw division to represent what's happening in a division algorithm. And when that happens with students, then students understand. And when students can tackle content from multiple perspectives, open-ended tasks, open middle tasks, and see that there are accurate multiple solutions pathways to a single outcome or a single solution, it's beautiful because students then can understand. Here we are, another beautiful coherence and cohesion across the curriculum is that we use a set of instructional models, tape diagram, number bonds, arrays, a consistent set of models that students can then add to their toolbox and pull out as needed, when needed, not just in K to 5 and not just in 6 to 8, but actually in 9 to 12 and beyond. Grade 9 to 12 and beyond, they're still using tape diagrams because tape diagrams illustrate content. And here we have content illustrated in multiple modes, multiple fashions, with multiple models, all equally valid. Discourse is what the research says helps to nurture student understanding. Thinking about one of the research bases of our work, the text, the 5 practices for promoting productive mathematical discourse, instructional routines nurture discourse. And so across Eureka Math Squared, you'll see a core set of routines. There are these 9 routines, plus a handful more that you'll see consistently across all of the lessons and the grades. And they're an opportunity to look from multiple perspectives about content and to demonstrate an understanding, to talk. And it's also a way to develop and nurture students' social, emotional learning competencies because they're engaging with peers in mathematical practices. Those 8 mathematical practices woven into each of the lessons. And that's where those core routines are especially powerful. Now, we've talked about maintaining the rigor of math, but also nurturing accessibility so that students can access content. And one of the key improvements with Eureka Math Squared was that we needed to maintain the rigor, but make sure that reading was not a variable that impeded math understanding. So often as we lift the depth of knowledge, raise the DOK, there are so many words that can get in the way. And so we wrote Eureka Math Squared through the lens of a dyslexic student, a student who can be very successful with math, but for whom reading and words can be a barrier. And so we made deliberate decisions, eliminating unnecessary words, making intentional, super intentional choices about sentence length, about what words to use, about using consistent words, about making sure that there's white space so that students have room to work, using color strategically so that color can help students to understand, because words shouldn't get in the way of learning math. And what that means from an early years perspective, in K1 and 2, we only used names that follow a CVC pattern. And in K, students are pre-reading, so the text demands of them are totally minimal. In grade 1, level 1, students start to develop some reading independence. And so we used deliberately chosen high frequency words and visual supports. The word frog, a picture of a frog, pencil, a picture of a pencil. And then as we support students with the demonstration of understanding, we use a read, draw, write process. And we specifically call out the read, draw, write process to give students room and scaffold their supports. It's making sure that the content is accessible. And that's what universal design for learning is. Making sure that content is universally accessible for students. Not watering down content, but scaffolding and supporting students. And that means that within the teacher edition, teachers will find UDL, Universal Design for Learning, notes, point of need notes to support them. Yes, right now. Teachers will also find that the mathematical practice standards are called out specifically so that they can see connections for them. Within the module overview, there are those notes that I mentioned a few minutes ago. There's also at a module by module level, a math past section. The math past section is a deep dive into when this particular math content appears in the history of the human endeavor. When does this math appear in the past? Beautiful multimodal, multi-strand opportunities to weave social studies, science, other learning areas into math and to extend students. Let's take a look at a lesson itself. So here we are looking at the Great Minds digital platform at the Teach edition. If I want to teach a lesson, then I just go to the top right and I can click present. On the left-hand side of the screen, I'll see the teacher content. On the right-hand side of the screen, these are lesson slides designed to support my instruction. It takes a ton of teacher preparation work and time off of my shoulders. Each lesson starts with fluency. And this means in K to 5, in grades 6 to 9, fluency components are optional extras. And that's because in grades 6 to 9, the standards assume that students are fluent with numbers. Reality says otherwise often. And so there's the opportunity, resources given to grades 6 to 9 teachers so that they have access to fluency activities to nurture opportunities for students to talk, to discuss from multimodal perspectives, to demonstrate an understanding of how numbers talk with one another. And fluency does that. It's so much more than 6 times 4 is 24. Yes, students will learn the times tables, but when students understand that 6 times 4 is 24, therefore 60 times 4 is 240, therefore 60 times 40 is 2,400, then they see how numbers talk and speak a language that's consistent and coherent and beautiful. After the fluency, the launch portion of the lesson, just a few minutes, designed to be low floor, high ceiling, an opportunity to build context, to lay a foundation for the productive struggle that's to follow. Eureka Math Squared is all about joyful rigor, helping students to feel the satisfaction that comes from understanding content and understanding it well. After this, the learn portion, the heart of a lesson. This is a series of instructional segments designed to support the lesson objectives. Now in Eureka Math Squared, we support students' conceptual mastery development over time. It's not about at the end of a lesson, they're going to master content. No. At the end of a lesson, they're going to have taken a baby step, which will lead to the next lesson, which will lead to the next lesson and the next lesson, so that over time they develop a deep and meaningful conceptual mastery. And one way to develop a deep, meaningful conceptual mastery and to help students to engage with content and see its relevance is through what we call our context videos. Now, these context videos lay a foundation, lower floor, high ceiling foundation, whereby students see the application of what they're learning and studying in the real world. They motivate students to ask questions, a great opportunity for student discourse. I keep returning to discourse because unless a student can talk and explain a piece of content, that he or she doesn't understand it. And so they need to be supported in that. And let me play a few moments of this video to you. Now, as I play it, you'll see that there are only a few words. You could almost call it a wordless context video. The point is helping students to see the context and giving students an opportunity to look at content from multiple perspectives. In this case, we're learning about multiplication and the different configurations of numbers that lead to multiplication. As students watch this, they're invited to notice and to wonder, how is this connected to multiplication and the configuration of numbers? And the students in your classroom aren't the only ones who are wondering about the answer to this question. Opportunities for students to engage with content. And these context videos appear consistently across all modules across the grades. Additionally, in grades 6 and up, we introduce digital lessons. It's an opportunity for students to engage, to harness the power of digital resources. Now, in talking about digital, I will mention that Eureka Math Squared and Great Minds is not digital first. We are understanding first. And so when digital resources are a useful tool to nurture student understanding, they're used. When paper and pencil is the best format for student learning, paper and pencil is used. It depends on the tool as to the job. And in grades 6 to 9, there are multiple digital lessons across modules, across levels, across grades. And these digital lessons are designed to support teachers and help students to understand. And I will say that if your internet is down, if technology is not supported within the school, each digital lesson in grades 6 to 9 includes a print lesson that replaces that digital lesson so that you do not have to rely on that digital lesson. In this case, in this digital lesson, students are learning about area, and they're actually manipulating round areas, circles, rectangles, to see how they can modify particular areas. And then they use the best of digital tools. Once they've created their area, they actually explore it and they can interact with this concept. And that's where digital tools are beautiful. And it's an opportunity for students then to share their answers after having explored. And then the teacher can actually share those results with the class. The teacher can actually monitor her class and look at all of the devices in her classroom. And then the teacher, when it's time for him or her to move to the next level of discussion, can actually switch to gallery mode. And in gallery mode, she can highlight specific examples. So move over to gallery mode, and we're moving Sarah and Jennifer into the gallery mode so that all of the rest of the class can see those exemplars. So it's like a whiteboard exchange, but a perfect whiteboard exchange because everyone can see all of the content that the teacher chooses at the right time. And the teacher can monitor students closely to make sure that opportunities for learning are being nurtured. The end of each lesson is land. And this is when students answer those key questions in the debrief. When they complete the exit ticket, students are scaffolded with the talking tool, sentence frames, to help them to talk about math and to understand math concepts. Looking at the print versus digital, you'll see that Great Minds Digital platform, teachers can assign print content digitally to students on their student devices, or they can complete that same activity in print format. In this case, we're looking at an exit ticket. In grades 1 to 5, there is not just a Learn workbook set, there's also an Apply workbook set. Learn is all of the daily classroom content. That's where problem sets, fluency activities, templates, exit tickets will be found. The Apply workbook is an opportunity for students to apply their learning and to further extend it. Included are practice problems that could be used for homework, could be used for extra RTI, for further differentiation, or for simple review. Practice problems are divided into 2 sections. First, practice problems about that day's learning, and then there's also a remember section, which is revisiting past content. Practice problems, today's learning, and then remembering previous content. And then to support students in remembering today's content and understanding it, also to nurture homeschool community relations, there are practice partners, which is an avatar walking students and caregivers through the thinking required to demonstrate understanding of this particular content. At the same time, to continue to nurture those homeschool community relations, there is a family math section, module by module and topic by topic, to help teachers support parents in supporting their children. And it includes at-home activities. It's an opportunity to nurture relations. Assessments. Each lesson concludes with an exit tickets. There are observational recording sheets, observational assessments in K1 and 2, topic quizzes every few lessons, module assessments at the end of the module, benchmarks assessments designed to be summative every second module. And the idea with assessment is to understand what students understand, for teachers to know what students know and can do so that teachers can support students. And the foundation in supporting students is called our Equip pre-module assessment. In introducing Eureka Math Squared, I said that equity is the foundation of everything that we do. And Eureka Math Squared Equip advances grade level content and equity because it assesses students' readiness for each new module's content, not by assessing the module's content, but assessing their students' understanding of foundational prerequisite knowledge. And then it says, because it's digital and adaptive, it tells the teacher what students know or what they don't know. It will back students up at times to previous module content to identify not just that they don't know something, but to identify their point of knowing, the point at which they do know and understand content. And then it will tell teachers which groups of students need attention with which essential foundational knowledge content. And then it will tell teachers when this content needs to be filled prior to lesson 1, prior to lesson 5, prior to lesson 10, so that students are ready for new content. And it gives teachers then the answer to the next question, which is what resources do I use? It gives teachers the resources that they use, fluency activities, class activities, small group activities, to target specific needs. Here's a screenshot from Equip. There's an individual student performance reporting, and then there's whole class reporting. So I know which groups of students need attention with which content, and I'm given the content and given the guidance to maintain pacing guidelines. And it's not just about supporting students, it's about supporting teachers. And so professional development comes in multiple modes, comes in live virtual sessions, face-to-face, is available in the form of blogs and webinars to make sure that teachers and leaders are supported. Thank you very much for this opportunity to introduce Eureka Math Squared to you. Exponentially greater.